Jose, this might be our last time on a lockdown session. We were just talking about the end is near.
I know. Well, yeah, it's kind of. I'm gonna miss your lockdown podcasts.
I think the other 8 people will as well. I have no doubt. But now, actually, you have your own podcast, so we can be mutually exclusive to each other. You run your OD Punk, which I love because, as you've described it, it's two grumpy old men talking OD.
Yeah.
Plug it. Go on, give it.
Plug it. Yeah, it's me and the next colleague of mine. We've during the kind of lockdown one, we used to talk. We spoke more during lockdown one than we actually did when we worked together, perhaps. And we said, we should record our rants and our conversations about. It's kind of we're taking that kind of critical thinking approach to what we do, to our own practice. And I remember the first one, we were talking about lessons learned. And we said, God, how many times did we facilitate lessons learned sessions?
Right.
And were we just as guilty of perpetuating that? We've recorded all these lessons and now they're filed in some Excel file in the middle of nowhere where no one can find. So were we adding, fuel to the fire rather than create something different? So we take a good look at ourselves, we critique topics, and we've had 2 guests so far, which ironically have been 2 ladies. So we've got two grumpy OD men and 2 ex-HR grumpy old ladies, in a way, as we like to call ourselves. And yeah, it just has a good chat about a topic that we're all passionate about.
Well, listening to your fellow presenter, I kind of feel, listening to his kind of Scottish tilt, that I should just have a Jack Daniels or a whiskey, a Glenfiddich or something in my hand, sitting in front of a fire, just talking, nonsense, basically.
Yeah. So, well, you are on our guest list, Brad. So watch this space. So yes, yeah.
I do grumpy really well, actually, in spite of the 2-minute tools that might talk about happiness. And there's a brilliant segue, Jose, as if you knew I wanted to talk about happiness today.
So, thought.
I've been thinking about happiness, and it started when the kids went back to school last week, and my neighbors have one teenager, one 11, 12-year-old, and a 7, 8-year-old. And they've been going absolutely mad. It's been quite quiet next door over the last 4 or 5 months. And then suddenly last week they went back to school. And on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evening, it was relatively warm here. And I could hear them outside in the garden, the kids. Honestly, they were jumping on this trampoline till about 10 o'clock at night. They were so giddy. Honestly, that they were deranged. They were so happy. Honestly, they were laughing. They were giggling. They were jumping around on each other. They were so happy. And I saw their mum outside, and their dad's a paramedic. So he's been working frontline the whole time. And I said to her, they seem happy. She went, they're completely off the scale. They can't contain how happy they are because they're hugging their friends and they're seeing, So it made me think, is that going to be true for all of us, for all the generations? We sent all of us home first, didn't we? We furloughed everybody, or some people lost their jobs, companies shut. We all went home. We all had to go home, and either we were lucky enough to work, or we had to play out whatever was happening in our roles. How happy are people going to be when they can finally, are we going to be jumping around on the trampoline at night because you actually went to the pub and hugged your best mate who you haven't seen for 8 months?
Well, I'm more likely to be jumping on a table in the pub than in a trampoline. Maybe after the pub, yes. So there is that. You see, it's really interesting. A couple of conversations I've had in the last couple of weeks with people, they've mentioned, we're gonna have another version of the Roaring '20s, where people are just gonna go out there and let's go. At the same time, I'm talking to other people who go, Oh no, I'm loving it now. I'm super happy with the way things are. I like my me time. I don't want to go out and interact with other people, which then raises other questions. Are we becoming more individualistic again versus this kind of collectivist culture? So there's lots of strands that you could take and explore. But I the glass half full type guy that I am, I'd like to think that most people would be very happy or be looking forward to. Well, I certainly am. I'm looking forward to sitting face to face with you and having a proper chat and feel that personal connection that we have and seeing my family and going to the pub with my mates and just being there, having a laugh, and as you said, being happy and notice how everyone around is happy as well. But I know that
Right.
not everyone wants as well. So
And also the extremes are that people have been so unhappy over this last year,
yeah,
and particularly in the last 3 or 4 months, they've been really tough for people. I know there's always a percentage that doesn't follow rules or guidelines, and there are those that behave and react in extreme ways, but the majority of people have respectfully tried to live through this last year, but a lot with sadness. And there's almost it's a minor concern of, are we going to be literally on the pendulum going from one end to the other? Like all of us locked down as we're quite miserable, we're worried about mental health, and then suddenly there's all this, joy.
yeah, it's
It's extreme.
you raise a really good point there, Brad, because I remember reading a while back something around kind of happiness, and I was doing some reading to it, happiness, well-being, kind of people's state of mind, especially as a result of what we've all gone through in the past year. And I need to figure out where it was, but it was something along the lines of happiness is it's not a permanent state of mind. It's kind of almost like temporary and bursts.
Yeah, it
So
just
so so it's kind of you get this burst of pleasure, you get but you aren't always happy, but you're going to have like the kids jumping in the trampoline, those kind of special moments. So even though it's not a permanent state of mind, you have long bursts of happiness and pleasure. So I think that there might be a lot of that. There might be quite a lot of it coming up in, immediately as a result of us being regaining our freedom in some sort of way. And how long is that state of happiness is going to last after that? We don't know. And I also wonder, I think you raised a very good point there. A lot of people who are suffering with mental health challenges and not feeling really happy, for example, with either with the job, with the situation, being locked down, and so on. How will they respond to seeing all this happiness around them when they themselves aren't ready to maybe explicitly show that? Um, so that for me there is that almost like there's those kind of three buckets. There's the those who are currently happy, who don't want to lose what they have right now, those who want to be happy again, or share the kind of joy and happiness and those great moments. And then there's those that are kind of navigating through that, kind of going, we need to get over some either personal stuff or professional stuff before we're happy again. So I think there will always be those looking um, inwards, going, great for you, you're happy, I'm not. And
yeah.
there'll be those of you going, we're all happy, why aren't you?
Yeah, and I think it's of course everybody is different and has their own approach to
Yeah,
it. But of course, it is just a state of mind. I mean, ultimately, there are chemicals that are released into the brain that create that euphoria of joy, right? I mean, from dopamine to serotonin, it's how the brain works. It's the chemical
yeah,
feeling. Um, my sense is that because human beings seem so wired to worry about stuff, that actually happiness itself perhaps isn't experienced either by as many people as sadness or worry, or perhaps more importantly, if everybody does experience happiness, how come it doesn't extend for sustained periods of time? So happiness seems to be more momentary, whereas sadness and worry seem to be quite consistent. Because, like you said, happiness is, it's just a state of mind. It's passing, it's fleeting, it's momentary.
It is, and the joy of happiness, all the good chemicals that it releases into the brain, and gives you the kind of sense of euphoria and the and all that great. But I wonder if the element of sadness that tends to kind of linger with us a bit longer, kind of a sense of loss, sadness, guilt, or even some extent kind of guilt about having had some pleasure of sorts, those kind of feelings that linger with us. And is it because they, to do with the kind of the way the brain works? And by the way, I'm not a neuroscientist, so I've got to be careful with what I say. Does it do those situations cause some sort of trauma in the brain, or stay with us longer, perhaps, rather than a sense of happiness, that kind of momentary burst of joy that makes us all excited? Or is it also because we're happy, and then we look at someone else, with a close friend or family or a colleague, who's not happy, and as a result we tone our happiness down, or we change and adapt our behavior so we make them feel better, or empathize? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a tricky one, that one, because I'm, even though I consider myself the glass half full, kind of the positive and optimist, yeah, there are times when I'm not happy as well.
And when you talk about it, it gets me thinking, because it's like, well, okay, so we talk about being happy, and what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
Like, what does being happy mean?
Yeah, it's
it's an open question to anyone who's
it is, yeah.
like, what? So to me, it's a feeling of complete joy in the moment, and I can acknowledge it in the present and reflectively. I feel as though nothing can get through my, like this ray of sunshine that's surrounding me. It's so warm and fuzzy, and I'm just home, and I'm comfortable, and it's all this lovely stuff rolled up, and it feels great. I want it to last forever, but I know it won't, so I want to appreciate it.
Yeah, and there's something there, as I was kind of listening as you were talking, kind of reflecting at the same time. For me, it's about kind of being at peace. That kind of there's that kind of moment of being at peace where you just pause and you connect with yourself, and you kind of go, this feels good. Life is good, that. And I remember there was this moment last year when you could see the world was falling apart. So there's climate change, Black Lives Matter, COVID, Trump, and something else happening. And the world, and I think we talked about this in one of our podcasts, the whole world was falling apart. It was like the perfect storm coming together. And I remember finding myself out in the patio and just taking a deep breath and kind of, practicing what we usually tell other people to do. And kind of that kind of inner moment, and this kind of sense of serenity with all the noises of London around you, and kind of going, this feels good. A sense of happiness and calm, and it's that kind of feeling that's kind of, I guess, unique to everyone. And yes, there's happiness, euphoria, the kids jumping on the trampoline, us going on a walk with family and friends, or in the pub celebrating, whichever way it is. So I think there's kind of those big bursts, but that kind of maybe more sustainable happiness. What is it? Is it a thing, or is it a kind of feeling that's unique to every person?
Well, and it's interesting because I live with animals, so I observe dogs quite a lot, and watching them interact, I think they are happy most of the time. Like the overwhelming emotion expressed by my two dogs is happiness. So how come they have such a happy life? What is it about, their life? And when I observe it, actually, they're completely present. They live in the moment. So if we're in the house, they can be happy because they're jumping on us or wanting to play or bringing a ball. The tails are going. Go out for a walk. They can't wait to go out for a walk. Get out on the walk. Oh, they can't wait to smell everything. And there's a stick, and there's a ball, and there's another stick. Oh, there's some fox poo. I'm going to roll in that as well and wag my tail. Now I'm going to come and lick you and wag my tail. They're happy in the moment. They're happy, even if they've had a little fight with another dog. They're still happy straight away afterwards. So I wonder whether the fact that we're so conscious about things, where we don't live in the present. So I was talking to someone the other day, Josie, I'd love your view on this. I was thinking that in a world and society that values action and results, it's very hard to find stillness and that serenity, that happiness that you talk about. In the countries where they value stillness, it's really easy. So go out to Bangkok, and I'm sure you wouldn't struggle to find stillness even in a noisy city like that. But
you see, as you were saying that, Brad, there was something that just came into mind was I would go a step beyond that driven by results. It's I would say instant gratification of the like culture. So, and I wonder why, and I wonder how much that impacts our state of happiness or being happy. Are we happy in small bursts because, oh, you just liked my comment, you liked my post, or you shared whatever it was? And we know that likes give us that rush, and as a result, even if we've done something bad, if someone likes you being bad, you're gonna play to that persona, as we've heard a lot with politicians, TV presenters, and so on recently. So that is that instant gratification giving us those kind of small bursts of happiness, but not that sustains a way of being.
Right.
Happiness.
So actually, we're almost rewiring ourselves that because we can access everything literally with a swipe and a double click, actually emotions and feelings become more fleeting, right? Because, oh, I really like that handbag, so I'm going to buy it. Oh, I really like those trainers. I've done it. I've been sat watching a movie, and I don't know, I get one of those Facebook ads for a pair of Nikes, and I'm thinking, well, my running shoes, I could do with a new pair. Suddenly I've bought a pair of Nikes. Hello? Really?
And as I'm sure you've seen lots of those kind of fly on the wall TV programs on addictions and hoarding and all of that. So it's especially with addiction, people keep buying. They get that kind of instant gratification, as you were saying, the click, the like, and all this stuff arrives, and then you send it all back. So what is it that's making you happy? Is it the clicking element, the satisfaction, or is it the having the stuff? Because if you're sending it back, that's really not making you happy. So having all the material goods maybe doesn't make you happy. So it's going back to that are you happy with yourself? And there's a lot of that about being happy with yourself. And as I'm talking, I'm thinking, what makes me happy? Is it more kind of giving or taking? And I remember going back to talking about collaboration, give and take that I was looking into. And for me, kind of being happy is that for me, it's more a sense of giving, the altruist. So if I help someone, it makes me happy. It gives me that kind of sense of purpose, that kind of sense of being. So this is who I am. Yes, being given gifts makes me happy if I like them. I guess being with people I like makes me happy. Meeting new people makes me happy. Going to the pub makes me happy for sure. But again, it's in those kind of small bursts. So, and maybe we need both. And maybe we need both. Maybe we need the kind of small burst of happiness to maybe kind of lift us up in the moment. And we need that kind of ongoing. Question is, where's the balance right now?
Well, and there's definitely something in what you say around the kind of self-esteem piece when it comes to happiness. For some people, actually, there's a guilt attached to happiness. You were kind of referencing it before, right? When you were saying how people adapt their behavior, you know, if they're really happy and somebody else isn't, they kind of feel as though they don't want to show off their happiness. So they kind of mute it. And I think you've also got some people who are trying to be happy. And of course, the more they seek it, the harder it hides. And so I wonder whether part of what you're saying actually is that real happiness, it comes from being truly authentic. Where you can be truly authentic, you will be happy because you won't be judging yourself or judging others.
Yeah, and there is, a lot of people. There's a lot of, people who pursue happiness in through different ways, through work, challenge, personal growth. So it's almost they see happiness as something they've got to strive for, I guess. So they're looking, they want to be happy or earn happiness, or it's a pursuit of something.
And there are layers, aren't there, of happiness?
Yeah.
So I think I might have the taste for Thai food tonight, and it would make me happy to order some in. But if I watch my niece in a play on the London, Shaftesbury Avenue in one of the big theatres, Cambridge Circus or something, right? And I'm watching her fulfill, I'd be like, my layer of happiness would be much higher than the layer of happiness I had for eating some chicken pad kapra or something, with a bit of chili and cashew nut.
So maybe it's the sense of, maybe happiness is, maybe it's the way that we frame happiness. Either we live in a happy state all the time, where if you're happy, it's going to be, I guess, more pleasurable than painful. So you're probably going to worry less. You're going to experience pain in different ways, perhaps. Versus if you look at happiness as this something you've got to pursue, that you've got to work hard for, you're going to experience happiness in different ways. I guess I'm on the former rather than the latter. So I don't see happiness as something you've got to work towards, because could I have could I work myself to the bone, have a long career, and still not be happy at the end of it? Probably. Could they say money doesn't make you happy, and you could win the lottery and still have a miserable life, I guess. And in fact, a lot of people who won the lottery have gone on to divorce, and some even ended up in jail for and all of that. So is that pursuit of happiness really realistic, I guess? And are we not being happy as human beings because we pursue that, versus living life as a happy state of mind?
Jose, I know that there was a period in the early noughties when I took 5 years. I've shared it before on here. I took 5 years out of the rat race. I didn't do any coaching, any consulting, nothing. I just took 5 years out. And those were 5 very, very happy years. In spite of trials and tribulations that happened in life, they were 5 very happy years. And then I came back with a renewed vigor in 2005 to drive the business, which had started 11 years before. And for 5 years, I put it on pause. And so no income, no business, 30 years old, happy.
Yeah.
Happy walking in the fields with a dog.
I think there's something there about kind of your moral values
Mm.
and your that kind of state of being. But I think your moral values there, kind of knowing what's important to you and what really makes you happy.
Right, because I didn't say I'm going to take 5 years off.
Yeah,
I just came out of what was the rat race and decided to spend some time developing me. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I've touched on dogs a couple of times, but you were talking before about kind of me time and how happiness being linked to how we are with ourselves. I think it's really interesting when I talk to people. Something else I've mused on. I'd love your view. So I love dogs, and if I need some space, say from the people I live with, I'll go into my room. I'll close the door. I'll tell them, "Hey guys, I just need some space. Just some me time." And I'll go upstairs. I'll close the door, but they won't be allowed in. Right? It's me time. But if my Springer Spaniel followed me up the stairs and he stood outside the door as I walked into the bedroom, does me saying I want some space, does it mean he can't come in either? Because I know when I say I need some space in order to, to be happy, if I need some space, that I don't mean from my dogs.
Yeah. But as you say, your dogs give you happiness. You enjoy being around the dogs because they're happy all the time. So if you had a grumpy cat, would you let your grumpy cat?
Yeah, because Sonny can be a bit grumpy, and actually he'll just curl his head into my shoulder, and he might start grooming my hair, which would be a bit disgusting, but it's quite cute as well. It's as if when I look at a lot of people, say when I've seen them around my animals, for example, they're brilliant at expressing emotions, say to the dog. They're really happy playing with the dog. There's something that makes them happy about it. And maybe the reason I'm giving it is because I believe it's all about being present. I've seen people who can't communicate to their loved ones emotionally talk to a dog, kiss it, hug it, share with it its deepest feelings, and not be able to climb in the car, drive home, and go and tell that to their partner.
Yeah, and I find that quite upsetting and quite sad that people feel that they can have those conversations with their partners and with their friends and with their loved ones. So yeah, it's kind of and my instinct is to want to help them have those conversations.
Right.
And I know it's the wrong way, perhaps. If they can talk to to the pet, great. If it helps them in any way, shape, or form. But then, what are they? If that makes them happy, fine. But what is it is there something missing? Perhaps I don't know.
No, I think there is, right? Because ultimately, the reason why I've observed, both in myself and in my patients over the years, the ability to share things with animals is because implicit in the relationship with a dog is the dog doesn't judge you.
Yeah.
So you are totally unboundaried by what you say to the dog. There will be no reaction other than love, probably. Yeah. Whatever you say, you can be completely true with every word and not worry that the other person might get upset or might not understand or might misinterpret, take it personally. The list of all the things that that get in the way of happiness. And I kind of feel. I was talking with someone the other day, actually, an old colleague who works with horses, and she was talking about almost looking at running leadership programs, but by building relationships with horses. I've seen the programs before, and I sense there might be something in the next few years that I'd be really interested in developing, which is actually looking at leadership programs that are built around building relationships with dogs. Because I think there's a lot we can learn about the relationship of being present, being mindful, being in the moment, and learning to build that relationship around loyalty and trust and all those things we talk about, would be so interesting.
And there's lots of organizations and charities that bring dogs into workplace, or were bringing dogs into workplaces in the past to help staff and people actually. I remember we did that in my last role. One of my colleagues was working on that, and anyone who'd been to the session with the dogs was totally relaxed and chilled afterwards, which was great. So I'm like, fantastic. If it works, let's do it. And I think building on that, something that's kind of, it just sprang into my head is, do we surround ourselves by things that we assume make us happy,
Mm-hmm.
and then we end up just talking to the pet because the pet's the only one that's not going to judge us.
Right.
And as I was thinking on that, another thought came to mind a few years back when there was a point in my life where I thought I was happy because I had everything. I had a good job. I had a stable relationship, a house. I was doing a master's. I'm not sure the master's was making me very happy, but the process, as you know, the one I've done, the process you go through, it's very introspective. So forces you to look at yourself and bring yourself as part of the process, because it's what we do. It's people in the OD. And I remember as part of the peer assessment process, my set asking me, what do you want? Because it was very much me. So I get happiness and pleasure from giving things to others, the altruist side.
Mm-hmm.
And when the tables turned and I was asked, what do you want? But being asked, what do you want repeatedly and making you think, I remember at one point saying, I just want to be happy.
Yeah.
And I caught myself in the moment kind of going, I'm not happy. There's something, and that's what, for me, that was a kind of ha-ha moment of, I have everything around. I've got the nice holidays, the nice friends, the house, the stable relationship, the job, and all of that. I was miserable. And when I reflect back on that, and this was what, 5-6 years ago, I was pretty miserable, actually. I wasn't very happy at all, and it was showing in my interactions.
Right.
So it wasn't until I kind of realized, okay, what is it that's missing? And one of the things, so there were lots of other things. There were lots of factors in there. And I don't want to expose anyone in my circle, anyone who might be listening, but one of the things that was really important to me was something you talked about earlier, Brad, which is about kind of being your true self, being your authentic self. And I felt that at the age of kind of late 30s, early 40s, I was still shutting down my sexuality. Not that I wasn't out, but I was just kind of, I'm not living that kind of lifestyle, or it was very kind of something fairly private. And I respect everyone's view on that. But for me, there was something that wasn't aligned personally. So I'm kind of going, hang on, I'm part of this community. There's so much injustice within this community out there.
For sure.
And I want to be part of it, but why am I shutting myself down? What's preventing me from that? And there was a lot of other stuff going on in there. And once I've kind of let go of, that asking myself the question, are you happy? I want to be happy. What's not making you happy? There were a couple of things. I decided to make some changes. So I ended up my relationship I was with at the time. And we're still very good friends. Want to add that. So
nice caveat. It's a good caveat.
So a lot of things. I changed jobs. I eventually finished the masters as well, all at the same time. And I went on holiday for the first time on my own. And I realized, I actually don't enjoy going on holiday on my own. Actually,
right, okay.
So I've kind of so I've learned a lot about myself. But and now with kind of being your true self and being authentic, to the point that I actually wrote an article for the FSB, the Federation of Small Business, the other day about
Not the Russian Secret Service.
Not that one. No. The Federation of Small Business
Yeah.
in the UK, about being a small business owner and openly LGBTQ plus.
Right.
Because if we're not our true selves at work, if we don't bring all of ourselves into whatever we do, if we kind of leave stuff at the door or leave the baggage at the door or stuff at home, which we never really do. Let's face it.
We're not emotional islands.
We're not emotional either. If we shut those parts of ourselves down, it has a negative impact on our performance. Yeah. It has a negative impact on our well-being and mental health. But more importantly, and there's lots of research done on that, it leads us to behave in a way that's not honest. So it leads us, in fact, to behave counterproductively in a dishonest way, to the point that you could even lie, cheat, and so on. So there's a lot of stuff there. So if you don't bring yourselves, are you truly happy with yourself, with the world around you? And as a result, what's the impact? And then on the other side, you know that happiness makes you happy, makes you more successful. Some people even claim it makes you less sick. I don't know. I don't have the medical evidence there. But I remember something that, I don't know if I learned this from you or not, might have been in our Disney days, that people who smile more have more of kind of a healthier lifestyle.
Well, no, they do. We have talked about it before, because actually the facial muscle movement of a smile tricks that part of the brain, so the amygdala, the fight or flight mechanism, your emotional control mechanism. It tricks it into thinking everything's okay. So what happens is, for those of us who worry, we're producing too much cortisol in our system, right? The facial muscle movement of a smile stops the
amygdala. Yes, exactly. That was our conversation, Brad. I remember that.
The cortisol. So yeah, if you're feeling that worry and stress, the smiling stops producing the chemicals that make you feel it. And I think it's really interesting what you say, particularly, I mean, one, I love the vulnerability of the story as well that you share, because I think there's something really powerful in what you say, which is, if you don't meet your own needs, you will play out. Yeah. And that happiness that you talk about, actually, when you said before, you don't pursue it because you don't see it in pursuit of happiness. Oh, good film, by the way, but not what you're trying to do. Actually, you want to be happy, as in yourself, and that comes from being your true, authentic self, which means you need to know, actually. And it's a really good question.
Yeah.
A really hard question. First of all, are you happy?
Yeah, I got it. Well, it was when they asked me, what do you want, first of all, but repeatedly, I was kind of going, whoa. This is about the group, not about me. No, what do you want?
Yeah.
And for me, that kind of, I remember, I can mentally take myself to that day, to the room, to what I was looking at, and saying, I just want to be happy.
Right. And then you start working out what that means.
Yeah.
I think this is a brilliant point to stop. We've run out of time.
Indeed. You see, when you're happy, you have these beautiful, meaningful conversations.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. We just I think that might be the title.
Yeah, there might be someone out there listening to us going, those two are not making any sense. But you know what? We're happy, and
we've had a lovely conversation.
Yeah, but we've had a beautiful, happy conversation.
So I've got one last question to ask you, which is based on who I should have as my final guest. So I've got a thing going. I think, so we're now into the last 10 episodes before we come out in June of lockdown. I need to get all the next 9 people to agree that I should get my mother and father on as the last 2 guests, because they've listened to every episode, right? And my dad comments on LinkedIn, and it's very cute. But they've said they'll come on it if every guest feels that they should. So I'm asking it on the pod, so when they're listening to it, they can hear it, so they know I'm not, giving them the BS. So Josie, do you think my mum and dad should be the 101st guests on the lockdown sessions?
You see, that would make me very happy, Brad. That would be the icing on the cake of happiness. It's, even though I say it's a state of mind, that to be the pursuit of happiness for me would be, yes, Brad, get your parents on. Yes. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, that's Mum and Dad. That's 9 guests to go and 1 in the bag. Jose says you're coming on the podcast.
Yeah. and Brad, thank you so much for letting me be part of this journey. It's been amazing, and I think this is my 3rd or 4th. I've lost track.
3rd or 4th,
but,
I think.
Yeah, but it's thank you. I feel privileged and honored to having been part of this experience. And be part of those 101 sessions. Thank you.
Brilliant. My absolute pleasure, and we'll speak again soon anyway.
Yeah. Look forward to that.
Thanks, Jose.
It's I'm gonna miss your lockdown podcasts.